This video will be on simple and compound interest. Our learning goals for today. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to calculate interest earned, total amount, and period of investment for situations involving simple interest. You'll also be able to calculate the total amount of an investment and the initial amount of an invested initial amount invested for situations involving compound interest. Okay, so let's start off with simple interest. So simple interest is a percentage of an invested amount added on at the end of the investment term. So we've got a bit of a formula here. So I stands for interest. So our interest. So to calculate the interest, we have to start off with our principal amount. So the principal amount is what you initially borrowed or invested or anything like that. So that's the principal. We then have the rate. So the rate is the rate of interest, and it's done as a percentage, and it's applied per every period of the investment. So it's applied to the principal amount at the end of every investment period. So what that means is it's normally at the end of 12 months, so it's per annum, PA per annum. So at the end of 12 months, that amount of interest will be added onto that principal amount. So R is just the rate of interest, and it's divided by 100, so we can have it as like a decimal there. And T is the time period, so that's how long we're investing our money for, and that's usually done in years. So if we simplify that formula, we get I equals PRT over 100. So this will give us our interest. If we want to calculate the total amount of money earned, obviously we have to do A, which stands for the total amount, plus the principal. So A is the total. So the total equals the principal plus the interest. So if you want to know how much money you're going to have total, you have to add the principal amount, so what you started with, plus your interest. So that will give you the total amount of money. Okay, so let's do a bit of a worked example here. So calculate the simple interest earned if the principal is $1,000, the rate is 5% per annum, and the time is 3 years. So we're going to start off and we're going to define our variables. So P is the principal amount, and that is going to be $1,000. The next thing we've got is R, so our rate is per annum, so every year it's going to pay this interest, and that's 5. And our time is in years, which is 3. So then we've got our variables here. We're going to put them into our formula. So our interest equals PRT over 100. So that will equal 1,000 times 5 times 3 divided by 100, and that equals 1,500 divided by 100, and therefore our interest will be $150. So therefore interest is $150. Okay, so we'll look at our second one then. So our second one is Alan and Rachel plan to invest some money for their child Kaylin. They invest $4,000 for 30 months in a bank that pays 4.5% per annum, so every year. Calculate the simple interest and the amount available at the end of 30 months. So we'll define our variables. So the principal amount is what they started with, that was $4,000. Their rate is 4.5%. Now time. So time is normally in years, and we've got it in months here. So it's 30 months, but we're going to write that in years. So that's actually 2.5 years. If you can't work that out in your head, you can just use your calculator and do 30 divided by 12 to find out the number of years. So then we're going to put that into our formula. So we need to work out the simple interest. So interest equals the principal amount times the rate times the amount of time divided by 100. So that's going to be 4,000 times 4.5 times 2.5 over 100. And that leaves us with 45000 over 100, dividing that by 100, and we have $450. So our interest is $450. But the question doesn't just ask for the interest, it says calculate the simple interest. So we've done that. The simple interest is $450, so therefore the simple interest is $450. Oh, that's a terrible 5. But the question doesn't just ask us to do that and nothing else. It also says calculate the amount available at the end of 30 months. So to calculate the amount available at the end of 30 months, we'll have to write our formula down. So the amount available is our principal amount plus our interest. So our principal amount was $4,000 and our interest was $450. So that will leave us with $4,450. So therefore, the amount available after 30 months is $4,450. Okay, so for C, Remy invests $2,500 at 8% simple interest for a period of time to produce $50 interest. For how long did she invest the money? Okay, so our principal amount that Remy had was $2,500. Her rate was 8%. The time is unknown, so that's our unknown value. And we do know the interest though, she had $50, so interest is $50. So we're going to put that into our formula. So I'll write the formula. So interest equals PRT over 100. Fill in what we know. So $50, which was our interest, is our principal amount. So that's $2,500 times 8 times T, because we don't know what time is, divided by 100. So if we simplify that, $50 equals, what's that? 20,000 multiplied by T. No, that's incorrect, sorry. Okay, sorry. So we're going to solve this equation to find T. Just ignore that step I just did. So we're going to use the onion method. So the first thing we have to do is obviously multiply both sides by 100 to get rid of that 100. So that means we've got $5,000 is equal to 2,500 times 8 times T. I'm just going to clear the screen because I've run out of space, but I'll just rewrite that last line. So I have $5,000 being equal to $2,500 times 8 times T. So I'm just going to simplify that a little bit. So that's 20 times T. I want to find what T is, so I've got to divide both sides by that $20,000 there. So T will be equal to $5,000 divided by $20,000. So T is equal to 0.25. So remember, time is in years, so it's 0.25 years. I'm going to convert that into months because 0.25 years is a bit clunky. So obviously to do that, you do 0.25 times 12, and that will give you 3. So it's 3 months. So therefore, she invested for 3 months. You could leave it as that 0.25 years, but it's kind of a weird way to measure time. I think it's probably better to turn into months. Okay, so our second formula here is all about compound interest. So compound interest involves adding any interest earned to the balance at the end of each period. So what that means, rather than paying, the interest, so in simple interest, we're paying the interest always on that principal amount. So we're always adding that interest just from the principal amount. So if you start with $4,000, you're always adding on, say, 8% of 4,000. Every year you're only adding on 8% of 4,000. So compound interest is a little bit different. So compound interest is once you've been paid some interest, you're then paid interest on top of that. So it's always adding up. So for instance, if you started off with, let's say, $4,000 and your interest rate is 2.6%, so the interest would be 4,000 times 2.6%. But then the next pay period, whenever that would be, however often it compounds, because it can compound at different amounts, it's that $4,000 times the 2.6% plus, times again by 2.6%. So this is your first year or your first pay period here. So it's the $4,000 times your 2.6%, and then the next period it's compounding on that again, and the time after that it's compounding on that again. So this is how we're kind of getting like a power within this formula. Okay, so our formula here is A equals P in brackets 1 plus R over 100 times N. So again, A is equal to our amount at the end. So A is the amount, P is the principal, so that's what you started with. So how much money did you start with in the investment, or how much did you borrow for a start. R, again, is your rate of interest. But we've now got a little value n. This is our power. So n is the number of periods so that your money is invested for. So how many times are they going to pay out that interest? Because it might compound monthly. So if it's compounding monthly and you've got it invested for a year, the n will be 12. So there'll be 12 pay periods. If it's compounding every 6 months and you invest it, for 4 years, the n will be 8, because it's going to pay you out every 8. It's going to pay you out 8 times within that time period. So because this formula actually calculates the amount, if you want to find the interest, your interest is the amount minus the principal, and that's how you can calculate what your interest would be. So I've got some worked examples here. So the first one, determine the amount after 5 years if $4,000 is compounded annually at 8%, round to the nearest cent. Okay, so we're going to put out our variables. So the principal amount is $4,000. Our rate is 8%. And sorry, the number of pay periods. Okay, so it's 5 years and it's compounding annually. So it's only going to pay out once a year. So the n is just going to be 5. So we'll write our formula. So the amount is equal to the principal times 1 plus r over 100 times n, the number of pay periods. So our amount is equal to $4,000 multiplied by 1 plus 8 over 100 to the power of 5. So you can put that into your calculator. Make sure you've got it exactly like that, so it does the orders of operations correctly. You can work it out in steps if you prefer. It's up to you. And we should get an answer of 5877.31. So that, though, is our amount. Our question actually asks us to determine, no, it does ask to determine the amount. There we go. So our amount is $5,877.31. It asks us to round it to the nearest cent. There we go. So we've rounded to the nearest cent. So therefore, the amount is equal to $5,877.31. Okay, so our second one here, after 6 years, a loan grows to $62,150. If the interest was compounded annually at a rate of 9%, find the size of the initial loan to the nearest dollar. Okay, so this time we've got the amount, which was $62,150. We've got the rate, which is 9%, and we've got our number. So our number of pay periods was, what was it? So it's compounding annually for 6 years. So there'll be 6 times it's paid out, once every one of those years. So then we'll write our formula again. So A equals P 1 plus R over 100 to the power of N. So we're going to fill in what we know. So 62,150 equals P times 1 plus, R was 9 over 100 to the power of 6. So that means 62150 equals P. So I've just solved these brackets here. So 1 plus 9 over 100 is obviously 1 plus 0.09. So 1.09 to the power of 6. 1.09 to the power of 6. So 62150 equals P times 1.6771. I've rounded it there. In your calculator, don't actually round, so just keep going with your answer. I've just rounded here just so you can see the steps involved. So then to work out our P value, it's obviously going to be 62150 divided by 1.6771, and that will give us an answer. So our P value, our principal amount, was $37,058.02. It asks us to round to the nearest dollar, so P equals, we'll round that to the nearest dollar, $37,058. So therefore, the initial amount was $37.58. Okay, so for question 3, Anthony's investment of $4,000 is compounded at 8.4% per annum over 5 years. Determine the interest he will have earned after 5 years if the interest is paid monthly. Okay, round to the nearest cent. Okay, so we'll sort this out. So his principal amount here is $4,000. And now his interest rate is what's a little bit funny here. So his interest rate for this one is 8.4% over 5 years. So his rate there is 8.4% per annum, so per year. But it's being paid monthly, so it's 8.4% over 12, because it's 12 times it's going to be paid out per year. And the number of pay periods, well, it's being paid out monthly, so it's 12 times per year, and we've got 5 years, so it's 12 times 5, and that will equal 60. So we can then put that into our formula. So A equals P1 plus R over 100 N. So that equals $4,000. 1 plus, okay, so R divided by 100, so 8.4 divided by 100 is 0.084 over 12. We'll take care of that rate of interest there. So we're 0.084 over 12 to the power of 60. So then you can put that into your calculator. Again, if you want to do it in steps, that's fine. You can do 0.084 divided by 12. Whatever that answer is, add 1, and then put that answer to the power of 60, and then multiply that by 4,000 if you want to put it in step by step, if you're not sure how to do it in your calculator properly. So that will leave us with an amount of $6,078.95. But the question asks us to determine the interest. So remember, our interest is going to be the amount minus the principal. So our amount was $6,078.95, and the principal was what Anthony originally had, which was $4,000, and that will leave us with an answer of $2,078.95. So therefore, Anthony earned $2,078.95 in interest. There you go. So that's all I've got for today's video. Any questions? As usual, make sure you ask.